to bring in Jon Silvia, who is standing by patiently. He's the chief economist at Wells Fargo. Doesn't usually have a forecast for ADP, but Jon, as Mike just said, I mean, small businesses finally appear to be hiring a bit more. Is that going to bring the jobless rate down?
Oh, I think it certainly will. A lot of small businesses, as we've seen from some of the surveys, like the National Federation of Independent Businesses, have shown some improvement over the last 3 to 6 months. So I think that there are some gains there. It's also, reassuring to see the ADP employment survey sort of coming in pretty much where the Bloomberg survey is, around 200, 210,000. So it seems as if that there's a lot of consensus here that there's moderate economic growth, and that will bring the unemployment rate down.
Jon, it's Mike McKee. I got a question about the unemployment rate, though. Normally, you see it rise as people come back into the workforce. They get more optimistic. We haven't seen that happen. What do you think the odds are we do see a rebound? Unemployment goes back up because the labor force rises, and the markets get a little nervous.
Yeah, well, I've been a little bit nervous on this whole thing, too, because, Mike, I've seen the participation rate fall pretty dramatically in the last 2 to 3 months. And that's made me think that, yeah, there should be a little bit of bounce up here. So, yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable with the fact that the unemployment rate may, in fact, move back up above 9% here, a little bit, 9.2 or so, over the next 2 or 3 months because the participation rate comes by. But traditionally, as the economy improves, people come back into the labor force to look for a job, the participation rate rises and the unemployment rate rises as well.
And Betty, just because of that cautious comment from Jon, maybe that it helps to explain what we're seeing in the bond market, which is there is a little bit of buying in 10-year treasuries right now on this news for those who are maybe doing a little safety check here.
Oh, you're right. And in fact, you actually saw less reaction in the bond markets than you did in the equity markets. Jon Silvia, just to get back to that point, though, I mean, with that unemployment rate, how much higher could it tick up, though, as you get more people, back into the labor force?
Well, at this stage of the business cycle, Betty, I think there is a fundamental change going on in the participation rate. So I don't think it's going to go back to where we were, let's say, 6 to 8 months ago. So I think the increase in the unemployment rate is going to be very modest at best, maybe 0.2 of a point. But probably the challenge will be it'll be persistently, 8.5 to 9 throughout the rest of the year, and that's going to be, I think, certainly a challenge to policymakers and consumer confidence.
Well, Jon, I'm curious. When you look forward and you see the news, the headlines from Libya and from Japan, and you see gasoline prices rising as they have, how likely is it we're going to see a Greece-style pullback in hiring? Companies start to get nervous again.
I don't think that's very likely. I think the business momentum is pretty strong going forward, so we should get, moderate economic growth as well as job growth. I think the bigger challenge oftentimes comes is that the people who are getting the jobs, and again, as you had emphasized earlier, are mostly in the service sector, and those service sector jobs tend to be computer literate, younger people, people who can, have a service orientation, and you're not going to pick up a lot of these construction workers and manufacturing workers that had lost jobs in the last 3 years.